Did you ever have a feeling you didn't talk about, or was there ever a sense, or did you just have a knowing? And 9 times out of 10, it was like, oh yeah. Well, why didn't you say anything? Well, what would I say? That's crazy. And I kept hearing intuition being described as crazy. And I started to realize I am using my intuitive gifts to give these people the solution out of the crisis. I could see it clear as day, A to B. Our wants and desires are deeply intelligent and meant to drive us towards our purpose. And that when we listen to this part, when we get to know this part, this knowing, dignified, expansive self, that we really get to live in total alignment with our truth, with our wants, and without feeling so attached to other people's opinions of us and to validation and to what good looks like to others.
Welcome back, my intuitive friends, to the Coach's Ascension podcast. My name is Grace, and I am your host. Today, we are having a conversation with Mory Fontanez, who is the author of the book Higher Self. I required this book for my Inside Advantage program, and one of my students reached out to her to tell her how much he loved her book. She reached out to me to let me know that and how thankful she was, and then I invited her to be on this podcast, and she's here today with us. And we are going to talk about discernment of the higher self's voice. How do we know when our intuition or our higher self is actually talking to us versus the voice of fear? And to be able to do that in order to live our lives in alignment with who we really are and who we are for others. So without further ado, let's meet Mory. Mory, welcome to our show, the Coach's Ascension podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Grace. It's so nice to be with you.
Yes. So interesting story. So this is for our audience, right? Like my student, so I required Mory's book, Higher Self, for the Inside Advantage program. And one of my students sent her an email to tell her how much he loved her and her book. And then she reached out to me and I was like, be on my podcast.
It was such a delightful note to get. You know, those days where you're just like unsure of what the hell you're doing. And I have those days. People like to remind me that I wrote a book about trust and faith, but I was having one of those days and I got this email from your student and it was so timely and lovely, and like he's really enjoying your course, and I just was so grateful that it was a required reading. So I just decided to reach out to say thank you, and it's history from there. It was so nice to be connected.
Yes, and this is our opportunity too to get to know each other a bit more and share with our audience about like what you're writing about in the higher self, and kind of just talk with each other about what that is, what that means, how that manifests in our lives and in the lives of others. So would you mind starting with just telling us a little bit about your book and where it came from and what it's about?
Yeah, sure. So Higher Self is really a love letter from a deeply knowing, dignified, eternal aspect of each of us to our human selves. It is a reminder from this aspect to all of us that we are endlessly worthy, that our wants and desires are deeply intelligent and meant to drive us towards our purpose. And more than anything, that we are filled with deep wisdom, and that every answer we seek is within, not external. So, there was so many dips and paths in my life that I tell the story of in Higher Self that really showed me that this aspect is real and that it exists. And that when we listen to this part, when we get to know this part, this knowing, dignified, expansive self, that we really get to live in total alignment with our truth, with our wants, and without feeling so attached to other people's opinions of us and to validation and to what good looks like to others. And I found it so freeing and so life-changing that I, first of all, left my career as a crisis manager on the PR side that I had been doing for 2 decades and decided, I need to teach people how to find this voice. I need to teach people how to trust this intuitive knowing, and I need to write this down. And so the book really started flowing out of me. I very much feel like I channeled it, and it very much feels like the collective higher self speaking to each of you. So it's written to the reader. It is written directly to you as you're reading it.
And thank you so much for speaking in the terms that, where you're saying collective consciousness and our own higher self and channeling. And these are words that I think are becoming more, one, accepted,
Mm-hmm.
and two, understood,
Mm-hmm.
and three, exercised. And I'm it's so important to me to be a part of this expansion. This
Mm-hmm.
is the language that we use to express who we really are inside, for our souls to express themselves. So I just really appreciate like the language that you're using
Yeah.
is
No,
really
I
important.
agree. I always say that my purpose is to take intuition and, consciousness out of the woo-woo closet and just show people how practical and pragmatic a part of you it is. It's like sight, it's like smell, it's another sense that we have to start to really become comfortable with so that we can leverage it for our highest good.
Was there something that happened with or to or from you that had this ball start rolling?
Oh my God, so many things. I mean, first of all, I just said I did crisis management. So I've learned a lot about crisis. My life really was a continual crisis. I say I was born into crisis. My parents left Iran just before the Islamic Revolution. And obviously, all of the hardship that comes with just, leaving your family thousands of miles away, not being able to go back. And then my mom and dad separating, and my mom being a single mother when I was little in a country where she barely spoke the language and wasn't close to her family, life felt like crisis a lot of the time. And I naturally sort of went towards crisis management because it was so comfortable to me. But in this kind of life and work study of crisis, one thing I've learned is that crisis comes calling when you don't listen in. And it's not a punishment. It's just a way of finally getting your attention. And so, for me, my life had a series of those moments. The first big one that really I write about in the book was the realization at 8 months pregnant with my second child that the marriage I was in was not healthy for me or my children or even my ex-husband. And, being on the floor of our kitchen, 8 months pregnant, sobbing because we had just had another fight about substance abuse and feeling so lonely and feeling so afraid, and just hearing this clear voice just out of nowhere. It was more like a thought um, that was just like, it's time to go and you can do this. And we're going to have this baby and then we're going to slowly just extricate. And the thought that really stuck out to me was either you will do this when they're little and they will be so much more full of joy and resilience and mental health, or you will do it when they are older and they will suffer longer. It was so clear and it was no judgment. It was like you pick. Um, and so that stayed with me. That experience stayed with me. It made me stop crying in that moment. It made me be able to get up. How, like when you're heavy pregnant, it's hard to even stand up. It like made me feel stronger. And I got up and I never really forgot that moment. And I had my son, and about 9 to 10 months later, I separated from my husband and started the divorce process. And then again in my career, it happened. So, I was then a single mom with two very little kids, 2 and 4 years old, and doing crisis management for Fortune 500 companies, running into fires that other people had created while they were running out, and trying to help executives sound trustworthy with the messages I was saying, helping them say. And, put aside how soul crushing that can be when you see that people aren't actually accountable for the harm they're creating, and how badly it makes you feel that you're using your skills in that way. That was eating away at me. But a question also started to bubble up that felt like a very familiar voice. And I recognize it as the same self that spoke to me when I was on the ground, 8 months pregnant and crying. And it was like, hey, why do you think you're so good at this? And why do you think other people get into crisis? Do you want to know? Do you want to start to ask? And so I'd start to go into these crisis scenarios asking the employees, like, did you ever have a feeling you didn't talk about? Or was there ever a sense? Or did you just have a knowing? And 9 times out of 10, it was like, oh, yeah. Well, why didn't you say anything? Well, what would I say? That's crazy. And I kept hearing intuition being described as crazy. And I started to realize I am using my intuitive gifts to give these people the solution out of the crisis. I could see it clear as day, A to B. And I realized that I could do that because I believed in that aspect of myself, number one. And number two, that when it's not your own pain and suffering, it's so much easier to hear that intuitive voice because your fear isn't shouting at you louder than the intuitive self. And that interest, that like the answer to that question that got planted in me just sparked this whole new journey of, well, wait a minute. If I could do this, then other people can do it, and I need to teach them. So long way of saying, yes, absolutely. Many moments of coming face to face with, this is something you have to do. And in fact, really coming to terms with and feeling so grateful that this is my purpose here.
Wow. And before you left your job, were you kind of helping people in the crisis management of like how to start listening to?
No. And that was what felt like it was missing. And I remember going to our CEO, very large international PR firm, and saying, hey, I feel like we have an opportunity to teach executives how to trust themselves more. And he sort of looked at me and said, that's a good idea for you to go and do. And it was really endearing. It was like, I believe in you. But it was also like, that's not what we do. We clean up the mess. That's how we make our money. So that, just didn't fit the business model I tell people now that for me, good looks like being able to disappear and you're on your way, because I'm trying to reignite the part of you that has all the answers. I don't want to be the guru. I don't want to be the lighthouse. You are the lighthouse. But many business models, even in modern day wellness, are really wrapped around need of another person. And that's true of a lot of things, and PR and crisis management is one of them.
Yeah, wow. That is yep, that's kind of a conundrum to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful because it really pushed me to go learn how to do this for myself and to build this consultancy that I have and this coaching practice that I have that's mine. I made it. I created the method. I channeled a lot of the method. I've had therapists say, do you know that you're doing internal family systems? And I'm like, nope, I had never even heard of that before. So I feel so grateful at the latitude that I got from the universe to go figure out what is the way that is in line with your integrity and your purpose, that's most fulfilling to you to help people and to really craft that methodology on my own.
And what does that look like? So if I were your client, what does that look like?
Yeah. So usually, I joke that I'm still a crisis manager. Usually people are finding me when they're in the midst of either a massive life change or feeling stuck or lost or who am I anymore? I still, I work still in the public domain, meaning that most of my clients are either CEOs or they are performers that have some level of notoriety. And what it will look like is really threefold. One is helping them see the parts of them that are stuck in a limited way of thinking. We all want something, and usually the suffering comes from believing it's unattainable or believing that we are unworthy from having it. And the first part of my method is really to open my clients' eyes to, well, who believes that? Because you are not that belief. It is one part of you. And that's where this part work, comes in. But I do a lot of visitation. I used to call it visualization till a friend said, no, these are visitations, where I will guide you to those parts of yourself and we'll be in dialogue with those parts. And, again, 100% of the time, they're very young selves that are trapped in some moment of pain or confusion, where they've created a story about who they are. and what's possible and what's not possible. And so we start to look at those stories as one aspect, which is such an unlock because it leads to this second part. I say that once you stop identifying as the limiting belief, but you see it as one aspect among many, it creates this space between you and that limited self. And in that space, your higher self comes rushing in. You can hear that grounded, intuitive wisdom in that space between you and the limiting thought. So when I can get you to see that you are not your fear, you are not just that limitation, all of a sudden the brain goes, well, then what else is possible? And what else am I? And so then a lot of the work becomes about reintroducing people to their higher self and helping them build a practice of learning how to listen in. And the biggest thing I teach that's the most transformative is discernment. When I go to make a decision or I feel like I need to do something in my life, what is the fear voice sound like, feel like, what is that? And then what does the higher self, the intuitive voice sound like and feel like? And once you're able to tell the difference, usually you're going to go towards the more grounded knowing self. And you're going to give the fear self what it needs, which is genuinely just attention and love and listening, but not necessarily following its guidance.
Wow. So you're coaching.
Yes.
It's the same. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I have put all this together and put together the Inside Advantage program is coaches aren't always tuned into that.
Yes.
And coaching from their own higher self, like
Right.
what is needed in this moment kind of process. And when we can just create that space, then something
Yeah.
comes in, and if we can allow that to flow, it doesn't have to be in a straight line, and they don't even have to get what they were coming for, and
Oh my
it'll
gosh.
fold in the way it was supposed to. And
I have really learned that in sessions, whatever is meant to be uncovered for that person's highest good is what's uncovered. And when I started out in my career, I had these like goals for my clients because I came from corporate America. I'm a strategist. It's like, I'm going to get you from A to B in these 7 ways. And what I learned is like, no, the human system is so complex and the psyche has so much it wants to unpack, and your higher self has so much it wants to say. And so it is not for us coaches to try and define the journey whatsoever. And the more you can be in touch with that aspect of yourself, like you said, the more comfortable you are just showing up in the fullness of your knowing and allowing whatever is meant to happen in that session to take place.
mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
I picked the right book for my class.
I know. I'm so delighted that your class is reading this book. Yeah.
So how is this all unfolding for you right now in your life? Do you have, I know I'm going through a big transition and having to trust in that part of me, which is stronger and louder than it's ever been, and yet there's still a side of me that's like,
yeah,
hold on.
Yeah. It's a dance, isn't it? I like to remind people I teach this stuff. I wrote the book on it and I struggle myself. Because, we are this really lovely intertwined system. I really like to look at the infinity symbol as this dance between our human self, the part of our soul that decided to come into this plane and be in a limited experience, which is the human body, but also a tangible experience, which is beautiful and painful and challenging and joyous. There's a part of us that wanted that tangible experience, and that's our human self. And so with that comes limitation and fear and anxiety and ego. And then the other part of our spirit stays at a plane where it is unattached from this human experience. It is connected to the great expanse, to the collective consciousness. And from that place, it's sort of steering us. It's like our GPS. And so that higher self and that human self are in a constant dance. And so what's important for me to remember when I'm struggling, and I think all of us who might have subscribed to, common practices around love and light healing that are like, reject the shadow self and you can heal that away and it's gone, which drives me insane. No, in fact, your entire life is about this blended journey between all that happens in that limited self and all that happens in that expanded self. And so I have to remind myself that, I can be very much gripped by fear. My core wound has to do with financial abundance because of my story with my single mom and watching the strain and the stress of her trying to put food on the table and a roof over our head by herself. And I can be very much afraid of that aspect of my own life, even when the evidence is like, look around you. You live in Santa Barbara, your kids are fine, everything's the way you wanted it to be. And so for me, it is that discernment tool that I use too, which is like, okay, I'm feeling so low or so sure that something's not going to work out or so ready to get disappointed. Who is that? Which part of me is that? What's going on with her? Am I not paying attention to her and she's trying to get my attention? And sure enough, it's like, yeah, hey, I'm freaking out because you're doing something big, or I'm freaking out because there's uncertainty here. And I try really hard to follow my own method of listening to that self, really being able to allow her to just, tune the volume down a little and then check in with what I have become very acquainted with as my higher self. I know when that aspect is speaking and be accountable to the choice. Sometimes I choose the fear voice, but then I have to be accountable to what that looks like in my life without blame, just not to be surprised. If a limited perspective creates a limited outcome, that is the evidence of my life, and I have to be accountable to choosing that path when I do.
Wow. It's just, I'm like all in my head about, I've done so many huge transitions in my life
Yeah.
that involved, I'm Aries. I'm very cardinal energy. So I'm like, once I see something, I'm like, go.
Right.
I don't really think it all through, and that's
Mm.
gotten me in trouble, right? But then the part of me that's like, but it's time to shift. It's time to change. It's time to move into the next level.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's go. But like the rest of the world around me hasn't caught up to that.
Yeah.
And I have this, so I've done these transitions where I just hit eject and like I worry about myself only. I don't have kids, worst I
Yeah.
worry about dogs, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm married and I'm trying to be more responsible. But I have the financial thing too because as a woman, like it's a whole other ball of wax to work for yourself, to take care of yourself and whatever attachments you have, and to also live in that sort of Venus, beautiful, I want to have a lovely place to be, to live, to meditate, to do, and to have all of those things and not be like, well, the only way for me to get that is to work in corporate America.
Yes.
And so I have to do that. And so I don't know what I'm saying other than like I'm still processing my transition
Yes.
from working with the clients that I have now to working with coaches exclusively
Right.
and working, on intuition, working with intuition, starting to channel things, working with astrology and just moving more into this bigger aspect of myself that's been waiting like for a
Yes.
long time, to have the conditions. And there's just still this part of me that's like, you don't have the conditions.
Yeah, I mean, that part is always going to be present, though. I've learned that about myself. For me, it's the imposter syndrome that's like, you don't know what you're doing, or nobody cares about what you're doing. So for you, it sounds like it's maybe a more wanting to be practical element that's saying, like, all of these things have to be lined up until I say it's okay to go. And the evidence of your life, I guarantee, has proven that the opposite is true. That actually you have made what you've made happen from intuitively racing towards the thing that you felt the most full body yes around. But we have these aspects who want to protect us by like creating these rules and systems. And that's why I think treating your life like, an interesting puzzle, treating your life as though you're an investigative journalist and you're trying to figure out like, who is this aspect and really what is it attempting to do? And also, most importantly, what evidence do I have that this voice is the most effective? And I think that you will find it's very little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how how do you balance that out? Like, it's actually very little evidence. Say more about that. Because
Well,
yes, I think that
let's
all the
do
time.
this together right now. I mean, we can do it with
Yes,
you, and if you're listening, go along
yes,
with this exercise with us. So
yes.
I want you to think of something right now that you're in transition on, or you are making a big decision around, or something you really want that's feeling maybe out of your reach.
Mm.
And I want you to allow the voice that does not believe it's possible or does not believe all of the elements are lined up yet to just for a minute have the microphone and tell you all the reasons why not.
Should I say?
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, mainly I feel like financial. It's fine. It's always financial.
Yeah.
You know, it it's shrinking. Like my client base is shrinking, and I know it's shrinking because I'm moving into this other piece. And then there's this part of me that's like, just rip off the band-aid. I'm like, go. I'm like, okay, I'm married. We do have a mortgage to pay. There are things that I need to be responsible for. So I'm not really sure how it's possible to make this big leap, even in these small increments that it's happening, because like I don't see the other way that this is going to get
Beautiful.
paid. Yeah.
I'm glad thank you for sharing that. It's very vulnerable. And I think your listeners will be so, um, sorry, words are really not working for me today. Come on, guys. They'll feel so relieved to hear you say that. Thank you. Because we all feel that way. You just articulated a very universal feeling. Now, this is what I want to know. When is the last time you made a major transition in life?
When when I got divorced,
Okay. And
I
so,
did hit the eject button.
all right, what was the aspect of you that actually made the transition happen? What was she like? Which version of you
Oh,
actually created the change? What was she like?
oh my gosh. Uh, it's the part of me that's like kind of ruthless, to be honest.
Okay. And when you look at her energy,
Mhm.
now that your consciousness is aware of her energy, she's very present. What does she think about this career transition?
Oh my gosh. Can I just speak from that voice? Because I'm
Yes,
already like
please.
limiting what I.
Yeah.
Okay, so that like ruthless part of myself that's like, enough. This is what we're doing.
Okay.
And is basically saying in this particular transition, like, it's fine. Just just like really kind of smart ass. Like just effing do it, you know? Like
Yeah.
this is not a major thing. Just do it. It'll work itself out.
Okay. Just do it. It'll work itself out. So just
Yeah,
pause right
yeah.
there. In your divorce, the first aspect that we looked at here, the one that was going to give you all the reasons why not. What evidence do you have? Well, actually, before I even ask that question, are you pleased with the outcome of that last decision to be divorced? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not asking about the way it happened or
Yeah.
whether it was easy breezy.
It's
I'm
always a
asking about the
process.
outcome. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
completely. Mhm.
So we're just looking at evidence here. What role did the part of you that was afraid to make that happen, the part of you that's telling you right now that it's this change is, um, insane or whatever those limited feelings were? What evidence do you have that that part contributed to this positive outcome? Does that question make sense?
Yes.
When you think about the divorce, what evidence do you have that the limited or fearful self, the one that has all the can'ts and shouldn'ts, contributed to you leaving and now being happy outside of that marriage?
Wow. Well, in that particular scenario, there was a pressure that built, I think, over time
Hmm.
where it was just this like, well, you can tolerate it a little bit longer, or you can, it'll become obvious when it's time, and just hold back, hold back, hold back. And it built this pressure that I finally just went, I needed the pressure to have the action happen,
Okay.
because the belief I had about myself at the time was I can't make it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And for
So
me
the
to take
bel
an action from there was really hard without like a force behind it.
yeah. So the belief I can't make it on my own, does that feel more similar to the belief right now that you have to slow down this transition, or more similar to the one that's like, let's just go, it'll be okay?
Oh my gosh, ask that again? It just blew my circuits for a second.
The belief in the marriage that said you can't do this, you don't have what it takes to leave this marriage or to exist as a whole person outside of it.
Yeah.
Is that energy similar to the one today in this transition that's asking you to slow down because it's afraid? Or does it feel more similar to the energy that's like, let's just go, it'll work itself out?
Slow down.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you clearly, it's the same entity. It's the same
Okay.
version of you that is full of self-doubt around the change you want to create, right? And it's giving you all the reasons why it's not a good idea, right? And all I was asking is the version of you that gives you the reasons why it's not a good idea responsible for positive change in your life in the past?
My brain is like stuck.
Okay. Well, then I will just tell you what I'm getting.
Okay, yes.
That version of you is what keeps you stuck in that place. The version that says, let's go, it's going to be okay, is the version that creates the change and makes it okay.
Yeah.
That's the evidence you have. That's what I mean by evidence.
Okay.
The evidence you have is the version today that says, well, I don't know, and if this is right, and this might be, and I don't know if we have it, what it takes. That version keeps you in the scenario that feels limited, like you just said about your marriage. The version that says, let's go, it's going to be okay, is the one that actually creates the change and creates an outcome that you're pleased with.
Yes, I'm there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in my head right now. But I did a I what do I want to say? I challenge this part of myself about you can't, make it on your own in so many different ways that um I'm at the point now where I can see this is going to happen,
Mm-hmm,
and that I have the freedom to do it.
mm-hmm.
And there's a part of me that's like, don't blow up the ship, please, because you're really good at that.
See, that's the part I'm just going to suggest is coming from a limited, fearful place.
I want nothing more than to be like, screw y'all, I'm done. I'm gonna do this thing. But practically, I think there is one client that I desperately want to let go of, and that voice is like, not yet. No, it's not time yet.
And when you hold on to something that's outgrown its place in your life,
Yeah,
how has that worked out for you?
it's like a longer, painful.
Yeah, it just drains your life force,
Just straight. It
because your life
does.
force is
Yes.
there to be additive to the things that are in your highest good. When something stops performing in your highest good and you're still feeding it energy, you are putting life force into something that is has a hole at the bottom of the bucket. So it's draining the life force. So the evidence you have is when you hold tightly to something that no longer serves you, it drains your life force.
I would say
Now that
100%. This just like I have 5 clients, like just one. Like
yeah,
if I just did that, like
right. So there's a
I would
part of you that knows
freedom.
exactly what to do. You just don't
Mhm.
trust that part. You just villainize that part because you said, don't do what you always do. But from what
Yeah.
you're telling me in your life, that part, the what you always do, has led you to a place that it sounds like you're pretty pleased with.
Yeah.
You're in a new marriage.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. You're in a career that feels purposeful, and you're transitioning to being even more purposeful. So you're demonstrating exactly the point, which is that we doubt the part of ourselves that is so clear and full of wisdom and like a missile,
Yeah.
because we've been taught that that part's dangerous or not smart enough or moves too quickly or whatever villainization of higher self that we do. We all do it, and that's what causes things to happen. People are always like, why can't it happen tomorrow? And I'm like, because of you. Whatever system in there doesn't believe. And when you believe, it will be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile the like child self and the higher self? Because there's the fear self, and then there's the child of like, I'm gonna go spread my light all over the place and like without
Yeah.
any kind of wisdom involved. How do you reconcile all that when it comes to
The child self wants to spread its joy without wisdom.
Yeah, like it
I
isn't.
don't.
There are times when saying everything that's on your mind is not necessarily appropriate.
Oh, okay. So not
Yeah.
spread joy, just constantly articulate.
Uh,
I mean, the short answer to your question, so that your listeners can feel, hopefully, that they can see themselves in this, is that, we are all prismatic. We all have multiple aspects to ourself, and so does our child self. Our child self has a fear it is stuck in, and it also embodies your higher self in many ways, whether that is imagination or creativity or play or joy. Um, the child self is also a prism. And so we usually are trapped in the fear of that child self, like I said, because of the pain. But the child self also holds a lot of wisdom around what freedom and expression and joy should really look like.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it did. I think there's yeah, I think that answered my question, because I think it's really easy to I think it's really easy to connect with the energy of the soul, which is very childlike. There's so much play and light and freedom. Freedom is the biggest word. It's always been a really important word to me, is freedom, and that we can sometimes, of course, our child is most people's child has been tamped down in some way or another, because we have to fit into a society and follow societal norms and yada yada yada, all the reasons why we're having this conversation now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it can be easy to go quickly too far in the other direction, in my experience, that the fearful part of the child, for me in particular, is like, run now fast while you have the
Yeah.
ball. And instead of like, you can actually walk with this and be more effective than sprinting.
Yes.
And so part of me is like, the crazy part of me that's very gotta go after it, is like, quit all the things, keep doing the new thing.
Oh, you're
And
speaking
then
to impulsivity.
impulsivity. Yeah,
Yeah.
impulsivity. And
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you that that is a form of anxiety.
okay, yeah.
That, again, there is a knowing self that says we're going to make the change and it's going to be okay. The quickness with which we feel that we have to go full steam ahead can be informed by anxiety. So this is where I say we are in a dance between the intuitive higher self and the limited human self, because look at how easily this can all get twisted. The knowing self says change. Yes, change is right and it will be well. Doesn't mean that the human self that's full of its own fear and anxiety and trying to protect you doesn't take that knowledge, that, gem of wisdom, and decide, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do with it. If I don't run with it, I'm going to lose it. If I don't run with it, right? Like feel the limiting thoughts that show up again. This is why I say discernment is so important, because when you're in trust and faith around just the grounded knowing this will happen and all will be well, you are also releasing control of timing, releasing control of how. If you notice yourself running with something or trying to force something in your life, that's a sign that your anxious self has picked up that wisdom and is trying to force fit it because it doesn't actually have trust and faith that it will happen in due time.
What? You're so darn articulate.
Thank you.
Yes, that was a fabulous way of breaking that apart, and like discernment or what's the other word is distinguishing like the difference between them. And yeah, that actually, the way that you just said that helps me a lot in kind of it's not categorizing, but like putting things that are happening in my own mind and in my own heart in the appropriate positions,
Good,
so to speak.
good. That's why I say
Yeah.
discernment, the most transformative tool in this work.
Yeah, because it's inherently scary to make a change, as you were saying, like,
Absolutely. Yes. And our egos we haven't even gotten there. Our egos have a whole illusion of control. So they believe our egos believe that they're going to control the how and the timing and the what and how other people are going to react and all of this stuff that's totally out of our control, which is terrifying to not feel that we have control. It's terrifying until you surrender yourself to trust and faith. And I'm telling you, back to my evidence tool, there's evidence in your life that when you have trust and faith, it works out.
mm,
Yeah,
that's
it's a hard
beautiful.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a feeling you might get some emails after this podcast.
Beautiful. I'm very open to them. Yes. As you
Send
can
to
tell,
your
this is
team.
my life's work, and I'm so passionate about helping people remember this truth about themselves. So I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this may be an easy or hard question. I don't know, but
Yeah.
what would you, or are you willing to share the most impactful spiritual experience that you've ever had?
Oh my gosh, so many. I don't even know, too many to name. Well, I am a pretty open channel. So I am experiencing spirit in different forms every day. I can say that for myself, it has usually been when I can feel an ancestor speaking to me, and then I'll get some validation. 2 weeks ago, I was having this like lucid kind of awake moment where there were two men there, older, and they were talking to me about, they were just kind of looking at me with this wonderment, like, wow. And I was trying to understand what they were saying. And they were like, we made an American. They were like so beyond, like, they were like, she's an American. Like this, we made an American. That's what they kept saying. They were so excited. And I was like looking at their features, and one of them I recognized. I was like, that's my grandfather on my mom's side. I've never met him. He died when my mom was 18, but I've seen pictures of him. I've never seen my dad's dad ever. And so my mom happened to be visiting, and I told her the next day, I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, what'd the other guy look like? And I described him. She goes, that's your dad's father. That's exactly what he looked like. So I will constantly receive these kinds of visitations and then get this really beautiful validation that that's true. And really, it came at a time where I was in a lot of self-doubt. And what they were reminding me is like, you are beyond our wildest dreams. That, two men from different villages in Iran could ever dream that their granddaughter would be, an American born citizen, which is a big deal, right, to them in that generation, who runs her own company, who's written her own book. Like, it was just such awe that they were looking at me with. And so, I'm really grateful that I am open to that kind of thing, because I receive that communication all the time. And then in sessions, I'll get relatives that have passed on, and I tell people I'm not a medium. This isn't for you to get a medium reading, but I'll tell you, is there a man who might, like the color red? Oh yeah, it's my dad. He said he'd send a cardinal anytime. Okay, well, there's a cardinal outside my window, and this is the thing that I'm really getting from this experience, and people will feel very stunned and validated by that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. So good. I feel like I need to have you like living in my room next door.
I am
Oh, hey, what's
happy.
up today?
Yeah,
What's going
seriously,
on?
just check in. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. My best friend says
Oh,
that to me. I would love that.
yeah. Oh, that's great. Um, it's I feel that the communities around these types of discussions, we used to call them deep, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so deep.
Yeah.
And really it's like it's life. It's this is what life is like, living in a higher dimension, a higher frequency, expansion, they're like a whatever words you want to put to it, but it's living in more of ourselves.
Yes.
We've been like shrunk down to this little thing, and now we're able to
Yes.
expand, and like deep is starting to become more like normal. Like,
Yeah.
of
It's just
course I heard my
expanded.
grandfather.
Yeah. It's just an
Yes.
expanded awareness of
Yeah.
what we really are. We believe that we are so separate from the divine. But the more open you are, the more you begin to see unequivocally that we are one and the same. And there's so much evidence to that fact when you're open to it.
Direct experiential evidence,
Yes.
which is so different than being in a religion and having people, or even
Tell
not in a
you.
religion, but whatever, but have people tell you this is how it is, or this is how
Right.
it should be, or
Right.
whatever the rules are. Um,
Yes.
I just published a couple. One, I was a guest on a podcast of my friend Sev, and
Mhm.
she does ET stuff, and then I had her on my podcast, of course.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, we've talked about our ET experiences, and hers have been like crazy,
Mm.
and I've had my own, and it's like I couldn't open up about them for decades because, well, number one, it's mine.
Hmm.
It's such a personalized experience to me
Hmm.
that to just blurt it out and just tell people is like, not only does it potentially take away from it, but it doesn't create something helpful.
Hmm.
And so being able to actually share on the air this these experiences that I've had publicly, it's like now available, where it wasn't available, at least to me before, to be able to share those visceral experiences in a way that are so real and people receive it the way
Yeah.
that I wanted to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that consciousness is evolving, and I think that if people are not ready for certain things, that fear will make them reduce it, ridicule it, reject it. And as consciousness expands, people are more open. I've been listening to a lot of Dolores Cannon
Uh-huh.
recently.
Yeah.
And so, I think that she was on this mission, many decades ago. And it's interesting how her work is coming back into the fore as we are expanding in our awareness.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
a lot of stuff is coming up, and I listen to and participate with channelers that have been doing it 30
Yeah.
plus 40 years, and they just like they stepped into it and were like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
When they had 3 people listening to them, and now
Yeah.
it's, millions of people.
Yeah.
Um,
People are ready and they're wondering, like, there's got to be more to it. We can't be here on this rotating, rock alone and without any reason, any purpose. People are asking bigger questions. And I think when you ask the question, the answers appear.
and are you so with your clients, are you seeing that in I don't know what, if you talked about CEOs and other kind of
Yeah.
public
Public
figures.
personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's an openness. I think that, with people who have a lot of influence, there's also a lot of pressure about how they come across and the mask they have to wear. Look, I don't think you work with me if you are not open to more than meets the eye, if you are not open to at least your own intuition and knowing that there's a higher self. Um, and some of my clients will talk about it publicly, and I can then talk about it too. And some of my clients don't want to because there's still shame around You look me up, it says intuitive life and leadership guide. It doesn't say executive coach on LinkedIn. My book says reclaiming the power of your intuition. So you have to sort of have the courage to be able to own that you believe this about yourself. And some people aren't there yet, and that's okay. I'm not there to push anyone's timeline, but more people with influence are open to this than you would imagine. Yes.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great to hear. Yeah. I feel like I have one foot in each,
Yeah.
and that's part of my transition. It's like, just really want to go over here.
I know. Yeah. But I think that it's like Noah's Ark. It's like you got to take people with you. So sometimes when you have one foot in each, that's what I say. It's like my job is to make intuition as pragmatic as possible. That's why, the universe picked a corporate crisis strategist to do this, because to me, everything has to be practical to make sense. And so sometimes one foot in each is part of the gift. It's part of the purpose. It's making it accessible to a greater audience than just those who have already been enlightened by the information.
Yeah. Just about to ask, is there anything else you feel like you really want to share or you want our audience to know?
Yeah, I really am on a mission right now. I'm calling it the self-trust revolution. I want all of us to ask ourselves how much we trust ourselves to have the wisdom to know what to do next, and how much we delegate that wisdom out to others. I keep saying not self-help, self-trust, because sometimes self-help inherently tells us we're broken and we need someone else to fix us, or tell us how to fix ourselves, how to help ourselves. Whereas self-trust believes inherently, I have this knowing in me. I know the way. And sometimes you just need reminders and you need guidance. So I'm really interested right now in people just asking themselves, when they hear me say self-trust, how much do I trust my own inner wisdom? And if the answer is not a lot, why? Where did that limiting belief come from, that I don't have the wisdom within me? And am I willing to explore that limitation and potentially start to set it down? Because then you'll have access to so many more answers and so much more clarity. And that does reduce suffering in life.
Beautiful. And what would you like to share with our audience in terms of what are the resources from you?
Sure.
Classes,
Well,
books,
yeah, the
sessions?
book is called Higher Self, Reclaiming the Power of Your Intuition, and you can buy that anywhere that you buy books. You can follow me on Instagram at Mory Fontanez, and you can go to moryfontanez.com to find all of my offerings and get in touch with me.
Beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. It has been a joy and a pleasure to get to know you more, and we are going to stay in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
I love this.
Absolutely, Grace. Thank you for everything that you do. I told you on the phone when we first met, I think it's so important for practitioners to learn how to use their intuition. And I'm so grateful there are people like you reminding coaches and practitioners of that. So I'm so grateful we're connected too. And I look forward to staying in relationship.
Thank you, all of my intuitive friends, for listening to this episode of the Coach's Ascension podcast with the author of the book, Higher Self, Mory Fontanez. Please drop down into the description to find her website, a link to her book, and any other resources we talked about in this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts, and join our Patreon page for free intuitive readings, exclusive podcast episodes, and more. Until next time, listen to your truth, trust in your heart, and take courageous action.
In a world that's shifting, the veil grows thin. Truth is whispering deep within. Old ways fading, new light calls. We rise together, soul and all.